Welcome back to the Legends and Legacies channel. This video is a little throwback to the true crime days. This video features two separate stories about hidden obsessions. So sit back and enjoy, and here we go. Today we're exploring a case that rocked a small community to its core. The names have been changed to protect the identities of the innocent people. This is the story of Emma Johnson and the horrifying truth that had unraveled in 2016. Our story begins in the picturesque town of Maplewood, New Jersey, a quiet community nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. With a population of just under 25,000, Maplewood was a kind of place where everyone knew each other. Emma Johnson was one of Maplewood's brightest stars. At 28 years old, Emma was full of life, always ready to lend a helping hand and share a warm smile. She worked as a nurse in the local hospital, where she was beloved by patients and colleagues alike for her dedication and kindness. Emma's life seemed perfect from the outside. She had a close-knit group of friends, a supportive family, and was engaged to her high school sweetheart, Daniel Lewis. They were planning their wedding and looked forward to their future filled with love and happiness. But underneath the surface, something sinister was brewing, unnoticed by those around her. Maplewood was a town where everyone felt safe, a place where the doors were rarely locked and the community usually looked out for one another. And it was the last place anyone would expect a crime like this to occur. But in October 2016, that sense of security was shattered. It all began on the evening of October 12th of 2016. Emma was supposed to meet Daniel for dinner after her shift at the hospital, but she never showed up. Concerned, Daniel called her friends and family, but no one had seen or heard from her since she left work. Panic set in, and a search was quickly organized. The entire town rallied to find her. Emma was always so reliable. If she said she would be somewhere, she would be there. When she didn't show up and wasn't answering her phone, everyone knew something was wrong. They immediately started searching, calling everyone and checking all of her favorite spots. The search continued through the night and into the next day. Emma's car was found abandoned in a parking lot near the hospital, but there was no signs of her. Days turned into weeks, and the community was gripped with fear and uncertainty. Where was Emma, and who could have taken her? As the investigation progressed, the police began to piece together a troubling picture. Emma had confided in close friends that she was feeling uneasy about someone she knew. Someone had been acting strangely towards her, but she never mentioned who it was. This revelation only deepened the mystery. Emma had told friends that she felt like someone was watching her, like she wasn't safe. When asked who it was, she just simply said it's complicated. No one ever imagined it would end like this. They thought maybe she was just overworked and stressed, but she was genuinely scared. On November 5th, 2016, nearly a month after Emma disappeared, the community's worst fears were confirmed. Emma's body was discovered in a remote wooded area miles from the car. The autopsy revealed that she had been murdered, and the evidence pointed to someone who knew her well. The crime scene indicated high levels of familiarity and access. The way she was lured and the manner of death suggested it was someone close to her. There was no signs of struggle, which meant she likely trusted her attacker initially. The investigation intensified, and suspicion fell on those closest to Emma. Her fiancé Daniel was initially questioned, but his alibi was solid. Her family and friends were also interviewed, but nothing seemed to add up. It wasn't until detectives took a closer look at Emma's acquaintances that the shocking truth began to emerge. Among Emma's colleagues at the hospital, there were a few individuals who seemed to warrant further investigation. Emma was well liked and respected, but there had been some tension and strange interactions that the police began to scrutinize more closely. One of Emma's colleagues, Dr. Richard Barnes, a well-respected surgeon, had been known to have a volatile temper and had once had a heated argument with Emma over a patient's treatment plan. Another colleague, Nurse Jenna Hill, had a complicated history with Emma. They were once best friends but had a falling out over a personal matter, leading to lingering animosity. Emma's professional life as a nurse was impactful. Her colleagues remember her not just as a skilled nurse, but as someone who went above and beyond her patients. Emma was more than just a nurse. She was a healer. Patients would specifically request her because they knew they were in good hands. She had a unique way of making everyone feel cared for no matter how busy she was. Working with Emma was an absolute privilege. She taught her colleagues so much about compassion and dedication. Her loss is felt every day in the halls of the hospital. Emma had an incredible ability to make everyone feel special. She could walk into a room and light it up. Friends used to joke that she missed her calling as a stand-up comedian because she always knew how to make them laugh. Emma's relationship with Daniel was the envy of many. They had been together since high school and they were the perfect couple. Their love story was one that many in Maplewood admired. Emma was Daniel's world. They had been through so much together and they were looking forward to building a life as husband and wife. Losing her was like losing his future. Every plan, every dream they had, it all vanished in an instant. Emma's family missed her every day. She was such a light in their life, and it was still hard to believe that she was gone. But knowing when the person who did this is caught, they would never hurt anyone else and would bring them some peace. They hoped Emma's story could serve as a warning and a call for change in how these kinds of behaviors were handled. Among the suspects were a few colleagues from the hospital who had shown an unusual amount of interest in Emma. Detectives reviewed their alibis and dug into their backgrounds. As they delved deeper into Dr. Richard Barnes' life, they began to uncover unsettling information about his interactions with Emma. Dr. Brown had an impeccable reputation, both in the hospital and in the community. He was known for his brilliant medical skills and was well liked by his patients and colleagues alike. However, his temper had gotten him into trouble on several occasions. Dr. Barnes was not the only one under scrutiny. Nurse Jenna Hill, whom Emma had a complicated history with, also drew attention. Jenna and Emma had once been inseparable, but their friendship had soured over time. Jenna's behavior had become erratic after the falling out, and some colleagues noted that she seemed to be harboring a grudge. On December 1st, 2016, another lead emerged. A hospital janitor reported seeing Emma arguing with someone in the parking lot on the night she disappeared. The description matched another colleague, Dr. Stephen Harris. Dr. Harris had always been friendly with Emma, often going out of his way to assist her with difficult cases. However, some colleagues noticed his interest in Emma bordered on obsessive. Dr. Harris had developed an unhealthy fixation on Emma. He had often made excuses to spend time with her, and some noted how his demeanor would shift whenever she was around. Emma had mentioned this feeling of uncomfortableness around him, but had dismissed it as harmless. As detectives reviewed phone records and surveillance footage, a clearer picture began to form. Dr. Harris had called Emma multiple times on the night she disappeared. Surveillance footage showed Emma getting into his car, confirming that he was the last person to see her alive. But Dr. Harris was not the only suspect. Dr. Barnes had also been in the vicinity of the crime scene on the night of her murder. His phone records placed him near the wooded area where Emma's body was found. Additionally, Nurse Jenna Hill had no solid alibi for the night in question, and her erratic behavior raised more red flags. On December 15, 2016, detectives received a crucial tip from an anonymous source. The tip pointed them to a cabin owned by Dr. Harris on the outskirts of Maplewood. Inside the cabin, they found disturbing evidence. Emma's personal belongings, including her necklace and a diary she kept hidden from everyone. The diary revealed Emma's growing fear of Dr. Harris. In her final entries, she wrote about his increasing aggressiveness and how she felt trapped and unsafe. She detailed a confrontation where he confessed his feelings for her and became enraged when she rejected him. The evidence against Dr. Harris was overwhelming. His phone record showed he was in the vicinity of where Emma's body was found on the night she disappeared. Surveillance footages from the hospital parking lot captured Emma getting to his car, and traces of Emma's belongings were found in his possession. Dr. Stephen Harris was arrested on January 5, 2017, and charged with first-degree murder. The trial was a media sensation, drawing attention from across the country. The prosecutors presented a meticulous case, detailing how Dr. Harris had used his medical knowledge and access to manipulate and ultimately kill Emma. During the trial, it was revealed that Dr. Harris had a history of obsessive behavior towards women, which had been overlooked or dismissed by his colleagues and superiors. This pattern of behavior painted a portrait of a man who was not only brilliant, but deeply disturbed. Testimonies from past colleagues and acquaintances highlighted a pattern of harassment and boundary violations. The community found it unbelievable. Dr. Harris was such a trusted figure, someone everyone looked up to. To find out he was capable of something like this was beyond comprehension. They trusted him with their lives, and he betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. The jury deliberated just 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict. Dr. Harris was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought some closure to Emma's family and friends, but the scars left by her tragic and senseless death would never fully heal. Emma's death sparked changes in the hospital where she worked. There are now more strict policies and training programs aimed at identifying and addressing inappropriate behavior. The hospital has implemented new protocols to ensure that any concerns about harassment or stalking are taken seriously and addressed promptly. They owe it to Emma to create a safer environment for everyone. Emma's story has mobilized people to push for better protections for victims of stalking and harassment. Legislation is being worked on to make it easier for people to get the help they need before it's too late. Advocacy groups are also focusing on education, teaching people how to recognize signs of obsessive behavior and what steps to take to protect themselves and others. Emma's legacy will be one of safety and awareness. Emma Johnson was beloved by all who knew her, a dedicated nurse, a loving fiancée, and a cherished friend. Her untimely death is a tragedy that will never be forgotten. Emma was always the first to volunteer, whether it was for a community event or just to help a friend move. She had a heart of gold and an infectious laugh that could brighten anyone's day. Emma's plans for the future were filled with hope and excitement. She and Daniel talked about traveling, starting a family, and growing old together. Losing her left a void that can never be filled. Emma's story is a stark reminder of the importance of listening to those around us, taking their concerns seriously, and recognizing the signs of danger. It's a call to action for those to be more vigilant, more compassionate, and more proactive in protecting those who we care about. As this look into the life and tragic death of Emma Johnson concludes, there is a profound sense of loss, but also a sense of determination. Her story has touched many and inspired changes that will hopefully prevent similar tragedies in the future. Our next story is about Samantha Mitchell, a tale of betrayal, dark secrets, and relentless pursuit of justice. Samantha Mitchell was a 34-year-old school teacher in the quaint town of Brooksville. Known for her kindness and dedication, she was loved by her students and respected by her colleagues. Now, Samantha grew up in Brooksville. It's a town with just over 5,000 people. There, she lived a quiet life, spending her free time volunteering at the local animal shelters and painting. Her friends described her as a beacon of light in the community. But behind the smiles and laughter, Samantha's life had its share of complications. She had recently gone through a tough breakup with her boyfriend, Mark Reynolds, who was struggling to move on. Her relationship with her family was strained, especially with her sister Claire, who had moved away to the city. Despite these challenges, Samantha remained optimistic, focusing on her students and her passion for teaching. Samantha's dedication to her students was evident in everything she did. She often spent hours after school helping them with their homework, organizing events, and even using her own money to buy supplies. She was a beloved figure in the community, and her sudden death left everyone in shock and mourning. On the morning of July 15, 2018, Brooksville was jolted awake by the news of Samantha's brutal murder. Her body was found in her home by her neighbor, Emily Lawson, who had grown concerned after not seeing Samantha for several days. Emily knocked on Samantha's door, but there was no answer. She had a spare key and decided to check in on her. That's when she found Samantha's lifeless body and immediately called the police. The police arrived swiftly, cordoned off the area, and began their investigation. Samantha's body showed signs of a violent struggle, and the cause of death was determined to be multiple stab wounds. The scene was chaotic with signs of struggle in the living room. It was clear Samantha fought for her life. Their murder weapon, a kitchen knife, was found near her body. There were no signs of forced injury, which suggested that Samantha might have known her attacker. The police immediately began their investigation, looking for any clues that might lead them to the killer. They combed through the house, searching for fingerprints, DNA, and other evidence that might point to her perpetrator. They also spoke to neighbors and friends, trying to piece together Samantha's last moments. In cases like these, investigators often look close to home first. Samantha's ex-boyfriend, Mark Reynolds, quickly became a person of interest. They had broken up a few months earlier, and there were rumors of heated arguments between them. Mark claimed that he was out of town the night of the murder, visiting his family in another state. His alibi was verified, but the investigators still felt there was more to uncover. Mark's relationship with Samantha had been tumultuous. They had met at a local bar 2 years earlier and quickly fell in love, but as time went on, their relationship became strained. Mark often felt jealous and possessive, and their arguments became more frequent and intense. After one particular bad fight, Samantha decided to end the relationship. Mark didn't take it well and continued to contact her, trying to win her back. Despite his verified alibis, Mark's behavior after the breakup made him a prime suspect. The investigators dug deeper into his background, looking for any signs of violent tendencies. They interviewed his friends and family, trying to get a sense of his state of mind during the time of the murder. But all they found were testimonies of a broken-hearted man who still loved Samantha. As the police continued their investigation, another potential suspect emerged, Jason Miller, a colleague of Samantha's. Jason had shown a romantic interest in Samantha, which she did not reciprocate. He was known to have been persistent, often asking her out despite her repeated rejections. The forensic team discovered crucial evidence of the crime scene, a partial fingerprint on the murder weapon, which did not match Samantha or Mark. This discovery opened up a new lead, and the investigators turned their attention to Jason Miller. Jason's relationship with Samantha was professional, but he had been known to harbor feelings for her. His advances were always politely declined by Samantha, who did not want to mix her professional life with her personal life. Jason's background was thoroughly investigated. He had no prior criminal record, but his colleagues described him as someone who could become obsessive. He often stayed late at school, sometimes waiting for Samantha. His behavior had raised eyebrows, but there was never any concrete evidence of wrongdoing. With this new lead, detectives brought Jason Miller in for questioning. Jason initially denied any involvement, but as the interrogation intensified, inconsistencies in his story began to emerge. He claimed he was home alone on the night of the murder watching TV, but when detectives checked his alibi, they found no one who could confirm his whereabouts. The detectives pressed on, sensing that Jason was hiding something. They revealed the partial fingerprint found on the murder weapon, which only added to the pressure. Jason started to crack, but he still maintained his innocence. He insisted he had no reason to harm Samantha and that someone was trying to frame him. The investigators decided to look deeper into Jason's past. They discovered that he had been involved in a similar situation at his previous job, where he had developed an obsession with a female colleague. She had reported him to the authorities, but no charges were filed. This pattern of behavior made Jason an even more compelling suspect. With enough evidence to move forward, Jason Miller was arrested and charged with Samantha's murder. The trial was set to be a high-profile case, drawing attention from the media and local communities. The prosecution presented a strong case, highlighting the forensic evidence, Jason's motive, and his changing alibis. They painted a picture of a man obsessed with Samantha who couldn't handle rejection. The courtroom was filled with tension as prosecutors laid out their case. They detailed how Jason's fingerprints was found on the murder weapon and how his alibi didn't hold up. They also brought in witnesses who testified about Jason's obsessive behavior and his persistent advances toward Samantha. Jason's defense team argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that there were other potential suspects. They claimed that the fingerprint could have been planted and that Jason had no history of violence. They also pointed out there was no direct evidence linking Jason to the crime scene at the time of the murder. The defense tried to create doubt in the minds of the jurors by suggesting that Mark Reynolds, Samantha's ex-boyfriend, had a stronger motive. They argued that Mark's jealousy and possessiveness made him a more likely suspect. They also suggested that the police had focused too much on Jason and had not thoroughly investigated other leads. The trial went on for weeks with both sides presenting compelling arguments. The jurors were faced with a difficult decision as the evidence was not entirely conclusive. They had to weigh the testimonies, the forensic evidence, and the motive of both suspects. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the foreman stood to deliver the decision. The foreman announced that they had found the defendant, Jason Miller, guilty of first-degree murder. The community in Brooksville breathed a sigh of relief, but the tragedy of Samantha Mitchell's death left a lasting scar. The verdict brought a sense of closure to Samantha's family and friends, but it also left many questions unanswered. Was Jason truly the killer, or had the real murderer managed to escape justice? Some people in the community believe that Mark Reynolds was the true culprit and that he successfully framed Jason. As the dust settled, the investigators continued to review the case, looking for any missed clues or new evidence that might shed light on the true events of that fateful night. But for now, Jason Miller would serve out a sentence while the community tried to heal from the shocking crime. Jason Miller was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Samantha's family and friends, justice was served, but their pain and loss remained. They held a memorial service for Samantha, where the community came together to remember her life and the positive impact she had on everyone she knew. The town of Brooksville struggled to move forward in the wake of the tragedy. Samantha's students were provided with counseling and support as they tried to come to terms with the loss of their beloved teacher. The school where Samantha worked established a scholarship in her name, ensuring that her legacy would live on. The murder of Samantha Mitchell is a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of a small-town life. It's a story of a life cut tragically short and a community that came together to seek justice. The case also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of obsession and the devastating consequences it can have. As time passed, the residents of Brooksville began to rebuild their lives, but the memory of Samantha's murder lingered. It was a wound that would never fully heal, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. Thank you for watching Legends and Legacies. If you found these stories compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos. Remember, stay vigilant, take care of each other, and see you next time.